America didn't join World War I to save democracy. It joined to save money, or more precisely, to make sure the right people's money didn't disappear. You've probably heard the bedtime story. America, land of freedom and justice, swooped in to rescue Europe from evil empires. The year was 1917. The trenches were full. The world was tired. And then, cue dramatic music, Uncle Sam shows up waving a flag and shouting about liberty. Cute story. Completely false. Because if you peel back the patriotic posters, the real reason was far less noble and a lot more familiar. Debt, oil, profit. Basically, the holy trinity of modern civilization. Before American soldiers ever touched European soil, Wall Street had already picked a side. And, surprise, it wasn't the side of moral principle. It was the side that owed them billions. Imagine it's 1914. Europe explodes into chaos. The British, French, Germans, Austrians, everyone's killing everyone else for reasons no one fully remembers. But in the middle of all this blood and mud sits a quiet little kingdom called American finance. While soldiers are choking on mustard gas, American bankers are choking on opportunity. See, war costs money, a lot of it. And the Allies, Britain and France, were running out fast. They started borrowing from American banks like college kids maxing out a credit card. By 1917, they owed the US over $2 billion, an insane number for the time. Now here's the problem. If the Allies lost the war, guess what happens to those debts? Poof, gone. The loans, the interest, the profits all vanish faster than a soldier's morale in the trenches. So while Woodrow Wilson gave passionate speeches about defending democracy, J.P. Morgan and friends were staring at ledgers that screamed, "Protect the investment." Let's talk about that man, J.P. Morgan. Picture a walrus with a monocle and the power to buy half the planet. That's roughly accurate. In 1914, his firm became the official purchasing agent for Britain and France. That meant he controlled what they bought from the US, who supplied it, and how much they paid. In other words, he was the middleman of the entire war economy. Every bullet, every shell, every pound of canned meat, Morgan took a cut. And he wasn't alone. American manufacturers were raking in millions supplying weapons to the Allies, while the US government loudly insisted it was neutral. Neutral, of course, except for the fact that American factories were literally fueling one side of the war. But hey, business is business, right?
Every good war story needs a spark, and for America, that spark was a very large ship named the RMS Lusitania. In May 1915, a German U-boat torpedoed the British passenger liner off the coast of Ireland. Nearly 1,200 people died, including 128 Americans. The newspapers exploded. Headlines screamed, "German murderers!" Cartoons showed Kaiser Wilhelm drowning babies. America's moral outrage was on fire. Except, here's the twist. The Lusitania wasn't just a passenger ship. It was carrying over 170 tons of war munitions, all purchased from American companies, which made it technically a legitimate military target. In short, Americans died because Wall Street was quietly shipping explosives under civilian decks. But that part didn't make the papers. Instead, the tragedy was spun into righteous fury, and bankers couldn't have asked for a better recruitment poster. President Woodrow Wilson had a problem. He'd won re-election in 1916 on the slogan, "He kept us out of war," which meant if he declared war now, he looked like a hypocrite. So what do you do when the public doesn't want a war, but the banks do? You hire the best marketing team on earth. Enter the Committee on Public Information, a propaganda machine so powerful it could make a bowl of soup sound like national destiny. They plastered posters everywhere, heroic soldiers, evil Germans, damsels in distress. They even coined catchy slogans like, "Make the world safe for democracy," which, if you think about it, is the 1917 version of "Buy war bonds or you hate freedom." And it worked. Within months, Americans went from "this isn't our problem" to "sign me up, I'll fight for democracy." Once America officially joined in 1917, the cash floodgates opened. Congress passed the Liberty Loan Acts, allowing billions to pour into the war effort. The same banks that had loaned to Britain and France now got government guarantees. Their risky bets were suddenly backed by Uncle Sam himself. The result? Wall Street made a killing, literally and financially. Factories ran 24/7, bankers collected interest, and America, the neutral peacemaker, became the world's richest arms dealer. As soldiers bled in France, stocks rose in New York. Nothing says patriotism like profit margins. When the war finally ended in 1918, the United States emerged as the new global creditor. Europe lay in ruins, drowning in debt to American banks. The British Empire had to pawn half its assets. France was bleeding gold. And the US? Suddenly, it owned the world's future through interest payments. Wilson strutted into the Versailles Peace Conference like a professor giving detention to Europe. He preached about peace and justice while quietly ensuring that American loans would be repaid. The irony? His own ideals, the League of Nations, world peace, moral diplomacy, all failed. But the money? That survived just fine. But here's where it gets really dark. By forcing Germany to pay impossible reparations to the Allies, who in turn owed money to American banks, the US created a financial feedback loop of doom. Germany borrowed from American lenders to pay Britain and France, who used that cash to pay back America. It was a circle of debt disguised as victory. And when the Great Depression hit in 1929, the whole thing collapsed like a Jenga tower. Guess who rose from the ashes of that chaos? A little Austrian with a mustache and a talent for yelling. So yeah, America didn't just enter World War I for profit, it accidentally funded the sequel.
If you think this story ended in 1918, think again. The pattern never stopped. Wars justified as moral crusades, financed by private interests, marketed to the public as sacred duty. Vietnam, stopping communism. Iraq, freedom and democracy. Ukraine, defending the free world. Every time the posters change, the bankers don't. The same revolving door between government, finance, and industry keeps spinning, louder, faster, richer. And every time the system needs saving, someone finds a new enemy of freedom. Because nothing keeps a market healthy like a good, old-fashioned war. Of course, all this talk of money hides the real price. 117,000 American lives, most of them farm boys and factory workers who believed they were saving the world. They weren't told they were saving JP Morgan's balance sheet. Imagine storming into machine gun fire thinking you're defending liberty, when you're really defending interest payments. That's the grotesque genius of it, turning debt collection into a moral crusade. And you can almost hear history laughing. Every empire learns this lesson too late. Rome debased its currency. Britain bankrupted itself chasing colonies. And America turned global finance into its battlefield. We like to think wars are about good versus evil, but more often they're about creditors versus debtors. And every bullet, every speech, every God bless America is one more line in the world's longest balance sheet. So, if you ever wonder why nations fight endless wars for freedom, remember, freedom doesn't pay interest, but debt does. So no, America didn't enter World War I to save democracy. It entered to save its loans, its bankers, and its rising empire. The tragedy is that millions believed the lie, and the profits, as always, went to the few who wrote it. History doesn't repeat. It refinances.